Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you guys are ready to paint some mushrooms. Today I'm using my micron pen and watercolors again. I've got a few new techniques and an experiment to try. Hopefully it works. Haven't had regular success with this technique, but thought I'd share it with you anyways. And I'm using watercolor paper. So without further ado, let's get to our mushrooms. This is my reference. These are mushrooms that grew in our yard in Kansas. I have made a composite of all of the mushrooms. Before we get started today, I wanted to show you kind of my setup as I get painting. Today I have taped down my paper. A lot of times artists will tape down their watercolor paper to keep it from curling when they're painting. The water will make the paper curl. If you don't tape it down, that's fine. You can wet the back of your paper at any time. Just clean water and the brush on the back side of the paper will help it lay down flat again. It counters the water on the front. So you could do that instead of taping, or you can tape it down. This is just plain old masking tape. You do need to be careful when you lift the tape off. Sometimes it will rip the paper, so take it nice and slow if you do that. I also have my rag to wipe my brush on. I spend a lot of time wiping the brush either to get some of the water out of it or to get some of the pigment out. It just depends, but I always have that in easily available while I'm painting. I have 2 glasses of water. I have one to rinse my dirty paintbrush in and clean most of the pigment out, and then I have one that I keep clean or try to keep clean. It doesn't always work, but so when I go to get a new color, I have clean water to mix with it. I have 2 watercolor trays. This one is an old one. I've had it since college. I love some of the colors in that one that are not in this one, so I usually have them both out and ready. This is the top to this one, and you can see it has places to mix paint. I've used it quite a bit to mix acrylics, to mix watercolors, to mix gouache. So it's not very pretty anymore, but it is functional still. And then these are also trays in which I can mix paint as I'm going, put some water in there and pigment, and be able to have more color to cover bigger areas. So just wanted to kind of give you a glimpse, a bigger glimpse of how I set up and how I get ready to work. So with that, I'm going to zoom the camera in and we'll get started. So I'm going to sketch in the mushrooms very quickly and very lightly. I'm not taking a lot of time to do this perfectly. We're just going to sketch them in quick and have some fun with them. I do want to annotate some of the different areas of the mushroom. Just get them in real quick and put a big this one has kind of a fun, crazy stalk on it, stem. I don't know what mushrooms have, quite honestly. Another flat one. These mushrooms would pop up once in a while in our yard in Kansas. They wouldn't be there one day, and then the next day they would just be there, and they would be huge. They were so much fun. I'll try and draw a circle. I'm trying very hard to keep my hand out of the way today. I keep getting my hand in the way so you can't see what I'm doing. I'll try and be very careful with that today. Put another kind of one maybe in this way. Give it trying to figure out where these would look the best, but we'll just go with it kind of as it is in the picture, the reference. I'm going to put this one off here in the corner. I don't think I love that. We want it small. We'll ignore that one back there. We want this one to be kind of small and in the distance. So we'll do, I don't love that at all. Maybe here. We'll do it coming off the page here. Maybe that would be better. In the reference, we do have the horizon line sits above most of these. So we can go ahead and put it in, although I'm not sure I'm going to paint that. The next thing that I really want to do is add some grass, because the grass is in front of and around the mushrooms, and we don't need a lot of grass. We just need some fun blades of grass hanging around. So we want to know where those are going to be as we get started. Put some behind the mushrooms. And then some in front of the mushrooms. Okay, where else do we need some? That might be okay for right now. We'll start with that. So today, my plan is a little bit different than what we did. Let's see, that one actually is going to go like that. I believe I had it. Is a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead today, and with my micron pen, I'm going to outline these first. I do want to make sure that my lines are correct as I get painting. So again, I'm going to try and keep my hand out of the way so that you can see. And we'll go ahead and draw. Now, if these aren't dark enough, if you're using a ballpoint pen and you're going to want them darker later, you can just go back in again. But I want to know where my grasses and my stems are going to be as I get painting. Mushrooms kind of have a funny bottom, so go ahead and do that. They're bumpy. There's nothing perfect about a mushroom, so we really have no fear of doing this incorrectly. We're just going to let that one go off. I don't know what that line was for now. This is the reason that I'm doing the pen first, just so that we don't get confused later. There. So we'll just put it right like that. Didn't get this mushroom in. This one had a really jagged bottom. Okay, let's get painting. I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to do this. I do want to get some table salt. We're gonna try a little experiment today and see how it works. I'll be right back with some salt. So I have some plain old Morton's table salt. If you have a salt shaker, that works perfect. We don't use salt in a salt shaker. We have sea salt in a shaker, and that would work perfect too if that's what you have. It doesn't matter what kind of salt you have. Any salt will do. And we're gonna play with that a little bit today. I know that grass is green, and so we'll probably do a kind of yellowy version of green grass. So I think what I'd like to do is have orange mushroom tops, at least a couple. Maybe we'll do some orange and maybe we'll do some yellow and see how they turn out. So what I'm doing is I'm mixing up a fair amount of orange here. And I am going to decide that these round ones, are going to be orange. Let's make these ones orange. So I'm putting the orange in there and I'm doing it pretty thick. It doesn't have to be perfect. We can come back in and thicken our lines. We can put colored pencil over it. We can do whatever we need to make the piece of art beautiful. Or we can just play and have fun because that's amazing too. So I put quite a bit in there. I'm going to do it again with this one over here. This one needs some more pigment, I think. And there's quite a bit of water on these, so we're going to wait just a second for it to begin to dry a little. Maybe we can take some of the water off of that one because that'll be a minute. Just pick it up like we did last week. Move the pigment around a little bit. I'm not very good with this salt technique. I have varying levels of success with it, but we'll give it a go because I think for the mushrooms, it'll be a ton of fun. So I just put a very little bit in my hand, if I can get a very little bit. I don't know if you guys can see this at all. I hope you can. And sprinkle it into the wet paint. Just a little, it doesn't take much. I'm just kind of rubbing it between my fingers until it falls out and gets into the paint. Okay. Now if this works correctly, it will make some crystals and it will be some fun mushroom patterns. If it doesn't work correctly, we'll have polka dotted mushrooms, which is also okay. It's a little bit more because I can't stand it. Okay, get rid of my salt and we'll come back and do some more. I think for these big 2 snow cap ones, I'm gonna do the same thing, maybe with a little bit of a yellow kind of color. Maybe we'll use, this might be more of a mushroom color. You can always mix your colors. That's fine too. Or use them straight out of the tin like this. So we try this again with these. Get the paint on them. Maybe I'll wait a hair longer to let the paint soak in on these. So this mushroom, we see the bottom, the underside of it, and obviously that will be darker. So maybe we can play with that while we let this kind of dry. Go ahead and get your mushroom color in there. Then one of the fun things that we talked a little bit about, I think last week, is that watercolor will bleed. So if we just put a little brown down here, it will bleed up. So we can use that to our advantage with this mushroom. Just put a little down there. That's where most of the dark will stay. And we can come back and darken that down more if we want to later. Okay, so let's see what happens if we wait just a second and put some salt down on those. Whoa. Okay, a good chunk of that has soaked in. Well, no, we still have some water. We'll wait. Okay, I'm kind of an impatient person, so I'm just going to put it down and see what happens. Get it into where some of it's kind of wet. Put a very little bit here. Just see what happens. That's probably enough. See if we can still do some with the orange. If your paint dries, the salt will not work. So you have to do it when it's wet. The key is the right amount of wet. And that is what I have yet to figure out. So this, like I said, just an experiment. We'll see how it goes, what we get when we're done. It's either going to be awesome or it won't. So while that dries, we have to let it completely dry. We're going to go ahead and work on some of the mushrooms in the background. Let me get a nice kind of beigey brown over here. Just get it started. I'm just going to follow my jagged lines. Well, actually, we can go straight because we know there's a background under there. So we can just put that in. Okay. And we can bring it up a little bit so that it stays lighter at the top. And move our paint around that way, our pigment around. Yep. Okay, we'll let that dry for a bit and work on this one. Again, same type of thing. We know that it'll be darker on the edge, bottom edge. We know that it'll be dark down here. We can paint some of the stem. Got a little stem in here as well. Paint this stem too while we're painting. And then move some of this around. And the same with this one. Get this stuck. Okay. Come back in with just some direct pigment right along the bottom here. Right along in here. So that it kind of bleeds up into the darkness of the underside of the mushroom. We'll do the same here, straight pigment. I'm not adding any water to it. We want nice dark colors. I'm just gonna let it bleed. Well, your paint stays wet for a while, so you do have some time to work with it. Same with this. Straight pigment, nice and dark in there. Trying to remember to keep my hand out of the way, I'm sorry. Okay, so now I'm going to clean my brush. And while this paint is still wet, I'm going to try and lift some of this color off the top to make the highlight on the top of our mushrooms. You can add a little water that will help you lift some of the pigment. And each time I'm lifting the pigment, I am drying my brush in my cloth. Okay, so now we're going to come over here and try and get this one. You need a dry brush to be able to lift the pigment. That's why I use my cloth in between every time when I'm lifting and wipe the water and the pigment out of the brush. And then I can come back and pick up some more. We're going to do the same with this one. If you're not getting it as light as you want it, you just add a little bit more water to it. Makes it fluid again, and you can lift. I believe I also need to lift right here. This was a blade of grass that I painted brown. So we'll lift some of that off. Lifted too much. And we can put a little bit back in. And there you go. Okay. Our salt's still drying. I'm not overly impressed yet. I'm not sure about you guys. Not seeing anything exciting happening with the salt yet. So we'll just have polka dotted mushrooms. Okay, I'm gonna go right on into the grass, keep us moving along. I have two different colors of green here that I do enjoy. This one is light green, so we'll use it kind of on the tops where the sun would hit some of this. Try not to get the mushroom too green. Okay, and then I have a darker green. And again, I right now am just painting right out. I'm not mixing any great colors at the moment. We can work on that in a little bit. I'm not overly worried about staying in my lines. Okay, I'm gonna clean my brush and go back to the light green. I'm gonna try and finish, maybe blend some of this into the darker green that we used. Make sure we've got things kind of filled. This probably isn't really a lighter green, it's a yellower green. It's great for grasses. Looks like I missed this one here. Okay, so we had some of this brown here. I'm gonna grab a little bit of both of these and mix them just with a tiny bit of water. Be carefully go underneath some of these to show where they would be dark, where there's some shadow on them. Just kind of blend it in, make sure it's going the right way. Some of these would be pretty dark blades of grass back in there. Again, don't get too worried. We can come back and blend them in as we get going. We just need to get the color in there right now. Okay, so I've dabbed my brush and I'm just kind of coming in here to blend these in. There. Oh, I forgot this one up here would be pretty dark. Darken that down. Okay. All right, now I'm going to add a little bit more water into that brown. I'm gonna maybe make it just a little darker. Try and get in here now that that orange is probably pretty dry. But I don't want it to go too far down, the shadow on the orange. Because the stalks on these were pretty white. we can leave them pretty white. We've got this fun yellow right here we can use. So the complementary color to the yellow is a blue. So I'm going to grab just a little bit of blue and tap it underneath. Maybe drag it down a little bit. And that makes a nice shadow to the underside of our stalk, stem, whatever that is on a mushroom. I guess it's a stem, isn't it? Okay. And then I might even do that right down here on the underside of this one. Instead of using brown, you can use the complementary color. Adds a little bit of interest to your painting and will also read as the shadow. Oh, that's kind of fun. Putting a different color in there. Okay, well, if we're going to play with complementary colors, the complementary color for orange is purple. So maybe we'll just add a little purple to this brown under here, because that'll be fun. Purple to this brown. There you go. Maybe we can just drag it down. There, that's a nice color for a mushroom stalk. Drag it down a little bit. Love that. Okay. I'm still not impressed with what the salt has done. I don't know if you can see it. It's starting to crystallize. I don't want to brush it off yet because still's not completely dry. So I'm going to add some more blue because that's fun. Add some more blue to this one. I hope I'm keeping my hands out of your way. Okay, maybe get a little more purple. That's just kind of fun. That might be too much purple, but man, that's fun. So I have no idea how long this video has gotten. We can stop it here. You can kind of get an idea, and I can, when this completely dries and we see what the salt actually has done, I can come back on and let you see that. We'll stop for a minute, let this all dry. I'll be back in a second. We'll see what the salt does and what else the painting needs. We'll go from there, all right? See you guys in a few. So I'm a little bit disappointed with the salt and how it worked. So I thought I would try it again on these and just to see if we can't make it work better. I'm going to just do a lot of pigment and a little bit of water this time and see what happens. So I'm going straight into my watercolor. I'm not adding, the brush was wet. I did get some water on the brush, but it's all pigment, very little water. I'm gonna do that on both of these orange ones. We'll start with those, see what happens. And there is still salt on there. I'm not gonna let it bother me. I'm gonna just get a tad bit more salt. And we'll try this again. See if we can get some crystals to form. So I still have some salt in my hand. I'm gonna do the same with our yellow mushrooms. Just gonna get the brush a little bit wet, but mostly pigment. Get pigment all on there. Moving the salt all over the place. It's even in my watercolors. Okay. So let's see what happens now if we put, there might not be enough water on there. Might not do anything again, but we're gonna try. Okay, let it dry. We'll come back. We'll see what happens. As you can see, the orange didn't dry before I tried to wipe the salt off of it so we could keep working on our painting. The yellow worked, it dried. I gotta tell you guys, I went grocery shopping, I went to the plant store, I've been gone well over an hour, and that orange still didn't dry. So there you go. I did want to show you what it looks like large scale when you do get it right. So this is one that I had been playing with, and maybe that's a lesson to me, only to use it large scale. You can see the beautiful crystal shapes in it and the different forms, and I thought that would be really neat for mushrooms. So perhaps we should have done large scale with the salt and then cut it out and put the mushrooms in. Even up here where there was not as much pigment, it worked brilliantly well. So I apologize for it not working so great on these, but we're gonna keep going with this painting. We're gonna go ahead right now and put some background in and have some fun with it. So for the background, what I'm gonna do is I am just going to get a very little bit of the yellow green and I'm just gonna start kind of putting it in. And I'm not gonna care that I hit some of my other colors. I'm gonna try to not too much. We don't want everything to bleed, but it's not terrible. So we're just gonna keep kind of putting this in, spreading it around. So see, I guess I'm just gonna hit everything under the sun, except the mushrooms. We'd like them to maintain their color. Very little bit of pigment and some water. So there you go. I'm just gonna kind of brush that around, get that. I want the paper to be just a little wet so we can play and have some fun. Get some color up in there. Maybe add some other, I'm gonna put a little maybe blue over here. It'll mix with the orange and the brown. That'll be kind of pretty. So trying hard not to get the mushrooms. Keep going. Just get some color in there. Oh, and I did just get the mushroom right there, so we'll get that out. Better to have it go out than into the mushroom, right? Okay. I kind of like that there's a little bit of orange up over here. We'll go with that. Mix that right into the green. Keep bringing it down and around. Maybe we'll put a little bit of that orange down here. Make some of this look like some more grass back in here. Some of the, oh, sorry, getting my arm in your way like I said I was going to try not to do. So now I've grabbed some of the other green. We're just going to keep making it look like there's little grass that our mushrooms are in with our greens. Let them bleed into this water so that they're not too strong. We just want them to be very faint back in the background. That's kind of fun. Okay. Look like we need just a little bit more green maybe down in here. There we go. Some more color right in there. Ta-da. Okay. All right, I think we'll let that dry for a bit. If we were to splat it or do anything else right now, whoa, spill my water, it would all bleed into the wet layer that we just put down. So we need to let it dry at least for a few minutes. Won't be an hour. I'm not going back to the grocery store. Once was enough. That was crazy. And I'll be back in a couple minutes, and maybe we can put some fun splats on this. Okay, I've waited a couple minutes. It's not completely dry, but it is drier. So for those of you that don't want to wait and have a blow dryer, that works brilliantly well. I have a scrap piece of watercolor paper, so I'm going to use that to kind of help me block out some areas that I don't want to get splatted. And like we talked about before, I might grab another one too. I'm not sure I want all of that splatted. Think they'll mind if I use my voter registration card? Actually, I want some of those grasses to be, so do maybe part at a time. We want some splats in there. So I'm gonna get some, sorry, I'm right underneath the camera right now. Some of the greens. I'm just gonna go ahead and start splatting with those. Okay, and I want some of the dark green. Splat with that. That one's not working as well. Not too much water. You want mostly paint, not a ton of water. Why are you not getting in there? Okay, so we got some in there. All right, now we're gonna move this voter registration card, maybe, let's see, what do you think? Maybe like that this time? We'll do some green again, some of the yellow green. See if we can't get some fun splats up in there. And then we'll try some of the darker green and get a little more water. Okay, see if we can, oh, nice splats. Oh, there we go. We got a couple splats where we had blocked. That's okay, because we can get our rag while it's still wet. We can lift some of that off, and that just helps our mushroom spots, which the salt didn't create. Little texture, right? Okay, now what I'd really like to do, I believe, is add some orange, because that is one of the colors in this. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do some orange. And I'm gonna try and do it without, there, get some orange in there. Okay. Okay, I really like that. Try and lift it off of this one. Those two came out well. Okay. So you can take some of these big, like let's say these are and just tap them in so they're not quite as dominant as the other ones we've got. Just splat. I like that word, I guess. Just kind of flatten them into the paper so they're not quite as dominant. Lighten some of those, not lighten, but smush them in. Okay, so with that being done, I think that looks pretty fun. We're gonna go ahead, do a few more things. I want to lighten the tops of some of the mushrooms because when I redid the salt, I lost a lot of that detail. And these are round, so we do want them to look round. So get some highlights in there. So get some water in where you want to be able to pick up the paint. And then just start lifting. You can lift with a paper towel. You can lift with a cloth, a washcloth. I just always kind of use my paintbrush. I feel like I have a little bit more control over my paintbrush. Okay, I want to do that on this one right here. So see, even after these were dry, you do have some ability to affect the pigment. That might be a little bit better. We'll do the same with this one. Maybe right here. Try and pick up some of that. You won't ever be able to get all of it up, which is why some watercolor artists use gel pens, white inks, or gouache. There's also on the market, it's called Resist. And if you know that you want somewhere to be very light in advance, you can paint the Resist on and then paint as you would normally, and the Resist then rubs off the image and you're left with the paper, and you can do whatever you want that way. Okay, and then this one really needs to have some of this picked up. So go ahead, and I've been over this paper a lot, so you can see some of the fiber is starting to come up. It's saying, please be done getting me wet, so we will. Okay. All right, we're gonna leave that for a bit, let it dry. I'm gonna probably go in while with my micron pen again and straighten up some of my lines or amplify some of my lines. I may well put some more grasses in there with just some line work, some of this type of stuff, because that's always fun to do back in there and make this area a little darker. But I will be back in a bit and you can see what I've done and where we are. All right. Okay, so this is my final product. As you can see, I added some more grasses with my micron pen. I have re-outlined the mushrooms with my micron pen. And I've done a little bit of shading inside the mushrooms to help give them a little bit of volume. I didn't do a ton. I don't think that they necessarily needed a ton. You can do as much or as little of that as you would like, obviously. And you can use whatever colors. I think the orange mushrooms make this look an awful lot like, I don't know, some crazy kind of Alice in Wonderland landscape scene. You might want to, I don't know, change that color up a little bit. Anyways, I hope you have fun with this. I can't wait to see your artwork. Please hashtag #MayYouCreate when you post your pictures on Instagram or Facebook so we can see them all. I will see you guys next week. Bye.